श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणं नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So I'm going to share my screen. Whoever the host is, could you please permit me to share my screen? Okay, thank you. And I'm able to share my screen. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to increase the size. So yesterday we had the good fortune to hear from His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. He's one of my heroes in ISKCON. It was such a wonderful class he gave. And today we'll continue the theme from verse number 3 onwards. So if you could please kindly repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om
Bhagavate
Namo Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter number 17, text number 3. Sattvanurupa sarvasya
Sattanarupa
Sattvanurupa Sarvasya.
Sarvasya.
Shraddha bhavati bharata.
Shraddha
Shraddha
Bhavati
Bharati
Bharata.
Bhavata.
Shraddha mayoyam purusho
Shraddha
Shraddha
Mayoyam
Maya Yam
Purusho.
Purusho.
yo yajraddha sa eva saha.
Yo
Ya
Yachatra
Shraddha Sa
Sayeva
Eva Sha.
Yasa.
Would anyone like to repeat?
Tattvanurupa Sarvasya.
Sattvanurupa
Sattvarupa
sarvasya
Sarvasya.
Shraddha Bhavati Bharata.
Shraddha bhavati
Shraddha Bhavati
bharata.
Bharata.
Shraddha Mayoyam Purusho.
Shraddha mayoyam
Shraddhamaya Yam
purusho
Purusha.
Yo Yat Shraddha Sayeva Saha.
yo yajraddha
Yaya
sa eva
Chaddasa
saha.
Evacha.
तत्त्वानरूपा सर्वस्य
Sattvanurupa
Sattvanurupa
Tattvanurupa
Sarvasya.
sarvasya
Sarvasya.
श्रद्धा भवति भारत
Shraddha
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 Bhavati
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 Bharata.
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 श्रद्धामयोऽयं पुरुषो
Shraddha
Shraddha
Mayoyam
Shraddhamayojam
Purusha.
Purusho
यो चच्छद्रः स एव च
Yo
Yaya
Shraddha
Yajraddhasa
Chaddasa
Sayeva Saha.
Eva
Evacha.
Saha.
Shattanarupa Sarvasya.
Sattvanurupa
Tattvanurupa
Sarvasya
Sarvasya.
Shraddha Bhavati Bharata.
Shraddha
Shraddha
Bhavati
Bhavati
Bharata.
Bharata.
Shraddha Mayoyam Purusha.
Shraddha
Shraddhamayoyam
Mayam
Purusho
Purusha.
Yaya Chaddasa Evacha.
Yo
Yo Shraddha
Yajraddhasa
Sayeva
Eva Saha.
सत्त्वानुरूपा पुरुषा श्रद्धा भवति
सत्त्वानुरूपा
भारत
सर्वस्य
श्रद्धा भवति भारत
श्रद्धा भवति
भवति
भारत
भारत
श्रद्धादयो देव पुरुष सत्सात एव च
श्रद्धामयोऽयं पुरुषो
यो यश्रद्धा
यो
स एव सः
श्रद्धा एव स
यो यच्छ्रद्धा स एव सः Okay, we'll read synonyms. Sattva anurupa,
सत्त्व अनुरूपा
अनुरूपा
according to the existence.
according to the existence
Sarvasya,
सर्वस्य
सर्वस्य
of everyone.
of
of
everyone
everyone
Shraddha,
श्रद्धा
श्रद्धा
faith.
faith
faith
Bhavati,
bhavati
bhavati
becomes.
becomes
Bharata,
Bharata,
O son of Bharata.
O son
O
of
son of
Bharata,
Bharata
Shraddha,
Shraddha,
Shraddha
faith.
faith
faith,
Mayaha,
Mayaha,
full of.
full of
Ayam,
I am
this.
this
this
Purushaha,
Purusha
Purusha,
living entity.
living
living
entity,
entity
Yaha,
Yaha
who.
who,
who
Yat,
yet
yat
having which.
having which,
Shraddhaha,
having which
Shraddha,
faith.
Shraddha
faith,
faith
Saha,
Saha,
does.
thus
Eva,
Eva,
Eva
certainly.
certainly
Saha,
Saha,
he.
he
he.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O son of Bharata, according to one's existence, under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired. So there are two paragraphs in this purport. May I ask somebody to volunteer to read this paragraph 1? If no one is ready, I can read, but I'm curious.
You want me to read purport, Prabhuji?
Yes, if you like, yeah.
Sure, Prabhuji. Everyone has a type of faith regardless of what he is. But his faith is considered good, passionate, or ignorant, according to the nature he has acquired. Thus, according to his particular type of faith, one associates with certain persons. Now, the real fact is that every living being, as is stated in the 15th chapter, is originally a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, one is originally transcendental to all the modes of material nature. But when one forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and comes into contact with the material nature in conditional life, he generates his own position by association with the different varieties of material nature. The resultant artificial faith and existence are only material. Although one may be conducted by some impression or some conception of life, originally he is nirguna or transcendental. Therefore, one has to become cleansed of. Prabhuji, can you please scroll down?
One second. Okay, from here, from the material contamination.
Therefore, one has to become cleansed of the material contamination that he has acquired. in order to regain the relationship with the Supreme Lord. That is the only path back without fear, Krishna consciousness. If one is situated in Krishna consciousness, then that path is guaranteed for his elevation to the perfectional stage. If one does not take to this path of self-realization, then he is surely to be conducted by the influence of the modes of nature. The word
Thank you, Prabhu.
Shraddha.
Maybe someone else can read the next paragraph.
Sure, Prabhuji.
Any other devotees would like to read the next paragraph, please?
The word Shraddha or faith is very significant in this verse. Shraddha or faith originally comes out of the mode of goodness. One's faith may be in a demigod or some created god or some mental concoction. One's strong faith is supposed to be productive of works of material goodness, but in material conditional life, no works are completely purified. They are mixed. They are not in pure goodness. Pure goodness is transcendental. In purified goodness, one can understand the real nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As long as one's faith is not completely in purified goodness, the faith is subject to contamination by any of the modes of material nature. The contaminated modes of material nature expand to the heart. Therefore, according to the position of the heart in contact with a particular mode of material nature, one's faith is established. It should be understood that if one's heart is in the mode of goodness, his faith is also in the mode of goodness. If his heart is in the mode of passion, his faith is also in the mode of passion. And if his heart is in the mode of darkness, illusion, his faith, his faith is also thus contaminated. Thus, we find different types of faith in this world, and there are different types of religions due to different types of faith. The real principle of religious faith is situated in the mode of pure goodness. But because the heart is tainted, we find different types of religious principle. Thus, according to different types of faith, there are different kinds of worship.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll read the translation one more time. O son of Bharata, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired. So yesterday we have heard from His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj, and where Arjuna asked a question after hearing chapter number 16 about the divine and demoniac people. Then he asked, at the end Krishna said, Shastra is the pramana for everything and we must abide by the Shastra. So Arjuna asked, there may be people who may have faith but not according to the Shastra. So what is the situation of those people? And that question and what Krishna is speaking, particularly verse number 3 and 4, this is about the people. They are not rejecting the Vedic culture like the demons. They're not rejecting the Vedas like the demons, like the atheists, but they're kind of lazy. Either they're, in one place Prabhupada also say they may be ignorant of all the injunctions. And we have seen the purport to the second verse that they are lazy to follow and they just want to go with the popular opinion to get some material benefits. So this is the situation about those people, particularly verse number 3 and 4. So let me see, I have a couple of slides. Can someone please tell me when are you able to see the slides?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. So Prabhupada mentions actually several different things in this purport. He starts with everyone has a particular type of faith regardless of what he is. Now what does faith mean? Can somebody say what does faith mean to you?
Confidence in something, maybe.
Yes, confidence in something.
It's also belief.
Yes, yes, Jiva Mataji, my obeisances. Yes, it's also a belief. Particularly, this word is used for the religious systems. Belief. Anyone else?
That was Jill. That was Jill.
Oh, that was Jill. Okay. You
But,
sounded similar.
but
Thank you, Mother Jill.
I remember reading how it's unflinching trust in something sublime.
Yes, yes. Particularly I mean, when we talk about Krishna conscious faith, Shraddha Shabde, Sudruda Nishchaya, right? Sudruda Vishwasa, this unflinching faith that if I follow Krishna consciousness, everything is taken care of. Uh, Krishna Bhakti, Kaila, something like that, Sarva Karma Krita, all the activities are done, this unflinching faith. That's a proper definition for the faith when we are in the right state of consciousness. And in other situations, it may be anything in which we may have some trust and confidence. Like somebody said, it's like when we are in the modes of material nature, we put our faith in so many different things. So everyone has a particular type of faith. Without faith, we cannot go about our lives. I mean, we'll be freaking out about everything. You know, is somebody trying to kill me? Is somebody outside the door if I open the door? If I get in the car, will I get into an accident? Will I be able to breathe? Is there coronavirus in the air? I mean, you can be totally intimidated by everything, but we have some faith. Somehow or other, whether in proper knowledge or whether in passion or whether in ignorance, somehow or other, this faith is very fundamental to the existence of a living entity. And Srila Prabhupada is saying this faith is considered good, passionate, or ignorant according to the nature he has acquired. Now, what is this nature? When we say the nature somebody has acquired, what does it mean? And we also use this word nature. It's my nature to do this, it's my nature to do that. This is a very important word. So Krishna himself has defined this in the previous, has explained about this in the previous verse. Dehinam svabhavaja. Ja means that is born out of, and swabhava, a person's nature. So this is swabhavaja. But where is it coming from? What is this swabhava? So there is another word for this one, swabhava. We say these are the impressions from the previous lives. We have what's called samskaras. There's another word, samskara. A person, in particularly in yoga teachings, you may hear this word samskara. And in the philosophical traditions of India also you hear this word samskaras. So a person is born with certain swabhava, with certain samskaras. So what this means is these are the impressions on the living entity from the previous life. As soon as the baby is born, he has some tendencies. It has some tendencies, the baby. And we see some children. Somebody was telling me about uncle's son. I believe his name is Gauranga. Somebody said he plays good mridanga. I asked him how old he is. He's like 3 years old. And for 3 years old to be able to play mridanga is quite something. I can say that with confidence, with faith, because I tried it. I tried to learn mridanga many times. I purchased mridanga, I don't know, maybe 18 years ago, and still I don't know a single beat. But my daughter, she just picked up easily. So we come with certain tendencies, certain nature from previous life. So now, depending on with who we associated with, then that nature could be in the mode of goodness, passion, or ignorance. So this is the svabhavaja that we're talking about. Now, what someone may ask, Prabhupada also goes back to, he talks about chapter number 15, where Krishna says, Mamaivamsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. All the living entities, they are my eternal fragmental parts. Now, if we are all parts and parcels of Krishna, and Krishna is transcendental, therefore the part must have the qualities of the whole. I mean, if I, give you, take a cookie, and break something and give you, it should have same quality because it's part of that cookie. So then if Krishna is transcendental, why is the living entity conditioned? And this is again one of those questions around which there are controversies as well, depending on what philosophy we believe in. And even within our Krishna consciousness movement, on this topic of origin of jiva, there are multiple opinions on why is the jiva conditioned in the material world. However, even though there are multiple opinions in our mission, and Srila Prabhupada is very clear on the situation. So he says, we were with Krishna at one point of time, and Krishna Bahirmukha. We turned our face against Krishna. Krishna Bahirmukha Jiva Bhogavanchakare. And we wanted to enjoy independent of Krishna. At that time, Maya grabbed us. And this question actually, Parikshit Maharaj puts this question to Shukadeva Goswami in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in chapter number 1. He says, how did the living entity which is transcendental acquire this material body? What is the cause? Is it just some kind of an accident? Somehow the unlucky jiva just got trapped by this material energy? How did this happen? And Shukadeva Goswami answers, this is because of Atma Maya. This is because of the illusory energy of Lord Krishna. And why did the illusory of Krishna, trapped the material, the jiva in these material modes? And Srila Prabhupada clearly explained there that we wanted to enjoy independently of Krishna, and not only that, we wanted to become Krishna. We wanted to be the Lord. So as soon as the living entity has this desire, so this desire is the basis for the living entity to come to this material world. This desire is what drags the material entity into the Mahat Tattva and gives him this false ego, this false identity. Ego means, who am I? Aham, the true Aham. Aham Brahmasmi. Jivera Swarupa Krishnera Nityadasa. This is the actual ego. But what we call as Ahankara, this is the false ego. And this is the main element from which everything else comes. And this false ego, it has many transformations in the mode of goodness, in the mode of passion, and in the mode of ignorance. And this false ego in the mode of goodness produces our mind. In the mode of passion, it produces intelligence as well as the senses that we have. We have 10 different kinds of senses: knowledge acquiring senses and working senses. And then there are these gross material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then the sense objects, what we call as sense objects, tanmatra, which is again things that are made of these material elements. So those are made of the product of ignorance. So from ignorance we have Panchabhuta, 5 elements, and what we call as tanmatras, the sense objects. But the senses themselves and the intelligence, they are product of the mode of passion, and the mind and the predominating deities of different senses, they are said to be the product of material mode of goodness. So living entity, because of this desire, he got trapped in this Mahat Tattva, which again manifests into all these different elements that we are discussing. So primarily they are classified into these 3 modes. It is called Prakriti also. Sometimes, so here we have these 3 modes, gunas. These gunas are also called sometimes Prakriti. Daivi Shesha Gunamai. Krishna in the 7th chapter also he says Daivi Shesha Gunamai. But in the 13th chapter he calls this as Prakriti. And actually this entire, from 13th chapter onwards, this is the topic we are dealing with. In the 13th chapter Arjuna asked the question, what is Prakriti, what is Purusha, Jnanam, Gneyam, several things he asked. And Krishna answered them, but this particular topic of Prakriti, this is being discussed from chapter number 13 onwards, chapter 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and even in chapter 18, this theme will continue. So this is all Jnana or Sankhya. This is the subject matter of the last 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. The middle chapter, predominantly Bhakti. The first 6 chapters, predominantly Karma. The last 6 chapters, predominantly Jnana. Of course, you'll find elements of Bhakti and other things in these other chapters also. But the dominating theme would be this Jnana. And in this Jnana, Sankhya, and in this Sankhya specifically, these modes is what comes through. So now Prabhupada also addresses, then we are trapped. How do we get out? How does the jiva get out of these things? So he explains by practicing Krishna consciousness. This is the only way. If we don't practice Krishna consciousness, we'll be trapped by the material energy. Very simple. Either we are Krishna's internal energy or external energy. If we do not take shelter of the internal energy of the Lord, we are in the eternal energy. So it's kind of simple, right? So either we practice Krishna, either we are guided by Krishna or we are guided by Maya. A living entity must be guided by something, because by nature a living entity is subordinate to Krishna. So then in second paragraph, Prabhupada talks about Shraddha. We talked a little bit about what Shraddha is previously. Prabhupada said everybody, he must have Shraddha. So now here Prabhupada says Shraddha or faith originally comes out of the mode of goodness. Now this is interesting statement. A lot of times when Prabhupada says something, yeah, this is from here, this is from here. Because one thing beautiful about Srila Prabhupada's purports is, we were talking about Shastra yesterday, and whatever Srila Prabhupada speaks is Shastra. Srila Prabhupada's purports, what he says in his purports, it is Shastra because majority of the time, unless he is giving some modern analogies, which is contemporary analogies, he's basically speaking Shastra because he'll be paraphrasing from somewhere. He'll be paraphrasing from Srimad Bhagavatam or from Chaitanya Charitamrita or from the commentaries of other Acharyas or from Ramayana or from Mahabharata. Srila Prabhupada is simply paraphrasing that information. Therefore, what Prabhupada is speaking is Smriti, is the Smriti Shastra. It is not different from the Vedas. So where is this line coming from? When I looked at it, and I thought, where is this coming from? Prabhupada is saying this Shraddha or faith originally comes out of the mode of goodness. Then why Krishna is saying that this Shraddha is in the 3 modes? So then I looked up this Baldev Vidyabhushana in his commentary. He mentions this particular line. And then, of course, Baladeva didn't give where this is coming from. And I looked up Sridhar Swami's commentary. And Sridhar Swami says, Krishna himself tells this information to Uddhava, that faith is a product of mode of goodness. And he says in the 11th canto, I couldn't precisely pinpoint where in the 11th canto there is some generic. In one place Uddhava asks and Krishna says, Shraddha and all these helps, these are the symptoms of a religious process. He says that. I couldn't fully pinpoint where it is from, but if anyone finds it out later, please share with me. So, but Prabhupada is speaking Shastra. He's saying that originally faith comes from mode of goodness. But however, again, because of the Swabhavaja, and also mode of goodness is also mixed with the modes of passion and ignorance. Unless it is, there's another term beyond Sattva called Vishuddha Sattva. This Vishuddha Sattva, and actually this topic comes up in the next verse. Srila Prabhupada talks about this Vishuddha Sattva. So that Vishuddha Sattva is pure goodness. But however, in the material world, until we'll come to the platform of pure goodness, we will be in this material goodness. And there is this material goodness, passion, and ignorance. So according to the position of this swabhava that we discussed about, based on the impressions from previous lives, based on our pious activities and based on our impious activities, based on what kind of association we had. So the heart is contaminated with these impressions. And now, mainly what we're talking about here is the subtle body, because the spirit soul itself, it has the desire, but then at that time it is overpowered and it is covered by this layer of subtle body and then the gross body. What we see is the gross body. With our physical eyes, we can see somebody's gross body. But the subtle body of somebody we cannot see. However, by the behavior of the person, we can start to understand the subtle body of that person. Because subtle body, does anyone know what the subtle body is made of? Just so that I'm not making anyone sleep.
Mind, intelligence, and false ego.
False ego, yeah.
Yes. Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So in the 15th chapter, where Krishna cites this verse, Srila Prabhupada said 15:7, right, where he said, a living entity is eternal fragmental part of Krishna. In the same verse it says, Manaschastani indriyani prakristani karshati. So a living entity, he's also struggling in this material world with the six senses, but the mind, manaha, is the leader. This mind is the one. And in the subsequent verse he says, etan grihitva vayur gandhan ivashayat. These are the last two lines. I forgot the lines. Shariram yad avapnoti yachap yutkramati ishvaraha grihitva etani samyati vayur gandhan ivashayat. So the living entity, he carries these conceptions from the previous life into another life. Shariram yadavapnoti yachat utkamati ishvara. He gives up his sharira, the body he has got in the previous life, he gives up and he goes into another life. But at that time, he carries the impressions of the previous life. How? Vayur gandhan ivashayat. Air carries aromas. Now the air itself, it has no smell. But what it does is, when the air passes through a rose garden, and then we get beautiful fragrant smell, wonderful smell. But when the same air passes over garbage, and it's stinky. The air itself, it is neither good smell or bad smell. It doesn't got that. But it acquires that by its association with whatever it is. So this subtle body, the soul, is going into another body, but the mind, it already grasped all these things, the mind and the senses, and now they are going into another body. Now, in that verse, etan grihitva samyati, it grabs all these things. But what is this etan? That etan refers to what Krishna told in the previous verse, which is the six senses, that includes the mind. Now that means even the senses will come into the next life. So now that's interesting. I mean, our impression of the senses is what we are able to see. My eyes, nose, ears, mouth, the tongue. These are the knowledge acquiring senses, and the working senses, hands, legs, our voice, the throat, and then the private organs. So these are the working senses. So, but we are just leaving the dead body. How are the senses coming into the next life? So beyond these senses that are visible, there are subtle senses as well. Now, any of you, if you are in the computers field, say you have a keyboard and you have a mouse. What do you need for those devices to work? When you hook it up, will it automatically work, or is there something else in between?
Some software should be there to operate that, Prabhuji.
Yes, so we have operating system. So what else should be required when you say software?
The network.
Yes, the network is there. So the network is the Paramatma. Okay, he is the one who is connecting everything. Particularly if anyone of you are in electrical or firmware or or even software. There's something called device drivers. Did you ever hear about that? A word called device. When you purchase something, now it's automatically embedded into the drives. You plug it in and it installs itself. But if any of you have done this in the olden days, if you purchase, say, a web camera or a mouse or a keyboard or something, you used to get a CD. Do you remember? You get a CD with your webcam. And then you have to put that CD in and then connect the webcam, and then the webcam will work. Does anyone remember what I'm saying, or is it too old information? So that's a device driver. Right? So that's a device driver. So that device driver is the subtle sense. So you'll get the gross keyboard, mouse, like this gross body will get. But we have this mind, intelligence, ego, and these subtle senses that are coming from the previous life. That's getting shipped with the soul. The soul is carrying that information. That's the smell that the soul is bringing into the next life. Therefore, then naturally, in the hands of the 3-year-old Gauranga, his memory is in the hands. The Mridanga is just playing like anything. This person hasn't even developed his logical abilities, which is Tere, Keta, or whatever, the beats are and stuff, but they're actually preserved in his hand, and it's going like anything, right? Because he downloaded those device drivers into the next life. So in the heart, there is this subtle body. In the heart, there is soul. In the heart, there are these impressions, the samskaras from the previous life that are coming in. So based on that, based on those associations, he takes up a particular types of faith. He gets into particular types of religious groups. He naturally has certain inclinations of, we'll discuss more in this chapter about certain foods. So many of these things are coming from the previous life. So this is text number 3. Before I go into text 4, are there any questions or comments from anyone?
So, Prabhu, you're saying that religions can be in the mode of goodness and mode of passion and mode of ignorance?
Yes. Yes. So the true religion is not like that, right? So Bhagavatam, dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. So Srimad Bhagavatam, it begins like this, right? Dharma projita kaitavatra, the second verse. So that means there are kaitava dharmas, the cheating religions. Yes, they can be in these modes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And in the next verse, a little bit more can be talked about on those. I think somebody put something in the chat. Let me see. So Gopi, my daughter, put it in there. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is Ado Shraddha. This Shraddha can be in any mode. Very good question, Sugopi. So even to come to Krishna consciousness, we need Shraddha, right? We need Shraddha. That's so Ado Shraddha. That is Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya, all these things. So in the beginning, Shraddha has to be there. Now Sugopi is asking a question, can the Shraddha, faith in Krishna consciousness, can also be in different modes? So interesting question. It could be mixed. So for example, when we have Sakama Bhakti, right? Then we may have some material these things. So however, Krishna consciousness itself is pure. We are on the right path, but there may be some lingering things. For example, if someone is initiated, Diksha Kale Kare Atma Samarpan, when we surrender ourselves, Krishna considers us to be, his own person, and we should become, and we throw grains and everything should be good, right? But still there is some inertia, so there is some tinge of other modes also will be there in us. The goal is clear to us, but some of the tendencies can be in the mode of ignorance and passion. Particularly if we do something out of fear, if I don't this, then that fear is in the mode of ignorance. If we do something to get some result, I'm going to do this and get recognition or something. That's in the mode of passion. I'm going to do this because it's my duty to do it, then that is in the mode of goodness. So when we perform an action, even though when we are in Krishna consciousness, that action can be in different modes. And then that topic comes up in chapter number 18, an action in different modes, a worker in different modes, determination in different modes. That will come up in chapter 18.
Thank you. So
Prabhuji,
I was asking,
go ahead.
is Shraddha in any mode sufficient to begin the process of Krishna consciousness?
Yes, we see that in 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says 4 different kinds of people, they come to Krishna, right? So instead of going somewhere else, they come to Krishna. They have desires. These people, they have desires. And, having those desires of wealth and popularity, and all those things, you could say that's motivated by mode of passion. So if someone comes to Krishna, yes, that's okay. But but in order for that to happen, there should be some level of mode of goodness. Like Prabhupada is saying, originally the Shraddha comes from the mode of goodness. So therefore, that means there is some factor of mode of goodness, and as soon as that comes, then Prabhupada calls fanning the spark, right? And the Krishna consciousness movement is predominantly for the people in the mode of goodness. And it doesn't mean they're fully in the mode of goodness. Even there is a spark. Prabhupada says we bring them, we fan the spark, and they come to this blazing mode of goodness. Yes, someone else was saying something. So Gopi, is that all right?
Yes, thank you.
So Prabhuji, can you go before slides? Because what's Gopi Devi Mataji asking, it's Shraddha can be in any mode, and you said that fear, but fear cannot be Shraddha, or desire cannot be Shraddha. It's a completely different different feeling or different thing, right? Fear cannot be Shraddha. It's a faith, right? So faith and fear cannot be together at all, because I cannot believe in something or cannot have faith in something by fear. Right?
You can have faith in something by fear, particularly in Christianity. If you're not believing in Jesus Christ, you're going to go to hell, right? So
Okay.
that's one thing. And the second thing is, yes, you are right. The feeling of fear and feeling of faith, how are they related? What I was saying is, feeling of fear is in the mode of ignorance. Okay. And then now, if a person, so that means the influence of ignorance is there on that consciousness. And now with that consciousness, you may put faith in Krishna. So you are not, that means a person can be in the mode of goodness, ignorance, and still he can express faith to Krishna. That's the point I'm trying to get at, is you don't need to be completely out of all the modes to express faith in Krishna. You can be exhibiting different symptoms of other modes and still start the process of Krishna consciousness and gradually be purified.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any comments, questions? If not, we'll... Yes.
Thank you for enlivening class. The topic of religions in different modes. So I see an example of a religion or a faith in ignorance without naming. The question I have is, do you think that in Kali Yuga, as it progresses, those religions and faiths will predominate? Because if you go to have a rational conversation with them, they'll blow you up first and then have a communication. So how to go about?
Yes, that is the difficult situation. That is precisely why conversation is not possible unless people are situated in a particular consciousness. Srila Prabhupada, when he was preaching Krishna consciousness, particularly in the West, devotees come across so many different people, and sometimes these people are, they are on drugs, you cannot have a meaningful conversation with them. So Prabhupada used to say, just chant Hare Krishna. Philosophy will not work with them, right? Just chant Hare Krishna. So chant Hare Krishna and distribute prasadam. So this is how we get into them. In Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada is why Srila Prabhupada is so much successful is he had the right tools for the right place and right circumstance. We have the best philosophy, but before we can give philosophy to people, there are other things that Srila Prabhupada has given, and we have to make use of those things. So that's why it takes, a maturity to be able to spread Krishna consciousness, right? By in time, place, and circumstance, what should we use at what time? And of course, unless one is very advanced, we will not be able to use all the tools at our disposal. Just like, I'm trying to move into this house, there are so many things that need to be fixed, and I don't know how to use all the tools. Still there's some stuff lying around that I ordered, I didn't assemble because I don't have a drill, I don't know, how to use all those things. So that's where expertise of advanced people like Srila Prabhupada, he was able to convert so many different kinds of people from many different faiths, people from different social backgrounds, economical backgrounds, so many backgrounds, variety of people Srila Prabhupada could do. But then what can we do? And as Srila Prabhupada left, and we are struggling, we are able to reach to pious Indians, and all of our temples, even in the West, are flooded with pious Indians. But we are not able to do what Srila Prabhupada has done. Paschatya Deshatarine. That's precisely what you're saying is yes, that needs an advanced devotee to get to these people. But Srila Prabhupada definitely gave us those tools, and if we pray to be empowered and take shelter of advanced devotees and get some training from them, hopefully we'll be able to push on this movement by depending on the holy name, distributing prasadam, and even different arts. We have wonderful arts and culture that Srila Prabhupada talks about in Bhagavatam as well. So with these things we can reach different audience.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
So if no one has anything else, we can maybe read the next verse. Yajante satvika devan yaksha rakshansi rajasaha pretan bhuta gananshanye yajante tamasa janaha. Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons. And those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. Let's look at the purport to this verse. In this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead describes different kinds of worshippers according to their external activities. According to scriptural injunction, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable, but those who are not very conversant with or faithful to the scriptural injunctions worship different objects according to their specific situations in the modes of material nature. Those who are situated in goodness generally worship the demigods. The demigods include Brahma, Shiva, and others such as Indra, Chandra, and the sun god. There are various demigods. Those in goodness worship a particular demigod for a particular purpose. Similarly, those who are in the mode of passion worship the demons. We recall that during the Second World War, a man in Calcutta worshipped Hitler because thanks to that war, he had amassed a large amount of wealth by dealing in the black market. Similarly, those in the modes of passion and ignorance generally select a powerful man to be God. They think that anyone can be worshipped as God and that the results will be obtained, and that the same results will be obtained. Now it is clearly described here that those who are in the mode of passion worship and create such gods, and those who are in the mode of ignorance, in darkness, worship dead spirits. Sometimes people worship at the tomb of some dead man. Sexual service is also considered to be in the mode of darkness. Similarly, in the remote villages in India, there are worshippers of ghosts. We have seen that in India, the lower class people sometimes go to the forest, and if they have knowledge that a ghost lives in a tree, they worship the tree and offer sacrifices. these different kinds of worship are not actually God worship. God worship is for persons who are transcendently situated in pure goodness. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.23, it is said, Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabdikam. When a man is situated in pure goodness, he worships Vasudeva. The purport is that those who are completely purified of the material modes of nature and who are transcendently situated can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonalists are supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness, and they worship 5 kinds of demigods. They worship the impersonal Vishnu form in the material world, which is known as philosophized Vishnu. Vishnu is the expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the impersonalists, because they do not ultimately believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, imagine that the Vishnu form is just another aspect of the impersonal Brahman. Similarly, they imagine that Lord Brahma is the impersonal form in the material mode of passion. Thus, they sometimes describe 5 kinds of gods that are worshipable. But because they think that the actual truth is impersonal Brahman, they dispose of all worshipable objects at the ultimate end. In conclusion, the different qualities of the material modes of nature can be purified through association with persons who are of transcendental nature. So here Srila Prabhupada is saying, of course, based on what Lord Krishna has said, that men in the mode of goodness, they worship devas. So that's why for the impersonalists, for them, all the gods are same. You may find them even in Vrindavan. They will be worshipping Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. And they will also manifest this Ashta-sattvika vikaras, Ashta-sattvika bhava. They cry and they do all those things. And if you ask their guru, who should I worship? I like Krishna, that's why I worship. But who do you like? You like Ganesh, you can worship Ganesh. So these impersonalists, for them all the Devi Devatas, they're all same. Because they think these are all imaginary forms of Brahman. Brahman has manifested all these different forms, so you can form any of these forms. So however, particularly in the Shastras, it is something mentioned called Panchopasana. So in this Panchopasana, they worship 5 different kinds of gods. And Prabhupada this is mentioning, they worship, let me go to my slides. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, this Panchopasana is mentioned, where they worship Vishnu, Shiva, Ganesha, the sun god, Surya Deva, and then Durga Devi. So these are the 5 devatas they worship, and this is called Panchopasana. So this is about those in the mode of goodness. And in the mode of passion, they worship Yaksha Rakshansi. In the mode of passion, they worship the Yakshas and Rakshasas. These are demons. You may find devotees also in Yakshas, as well as in actually in the Demanya class. You see Prahlad Maharaj, Bali Maharaj. And who does anyone know the very famous Yaksha? Who is actually, who has a job with demigods?
Kubera.
Yes, Kuvera, right? So those in the mode of passion, they worship Yakshas and Rakshasas. And then Bhuta Preta Ganan. These are ghosts. And these ghosts also people worship. Like Prabhupada is saying, in the remote villages, if somebody knows that there's a ghost on a tree, they go there and offer animal sacrifice and they worship these ghosts. And these ghosts are also pretas, particularly. These pretas are actually brahmanas who have become ghosts. And the brahmanas, they commit suicide or something. They become ghosts. And some people worship these ghosts. So this kind of worship is in the mode of ignorance. So however, Srila Prabhupada is saying the worship of Vishnu is considered sattva, vishuddha sattva. And this verse Prabhupada is quoted. This is Lord Shiva who is speaking to Parvati. Sattvam vishuddham vasudeva shabditam yadiyate tatra pumana pavrita satvecha tasmin bhagavan vasudevo. The last line I forgot, but it says namasa vidiyate. Lord Shiva is saying Hyadokshajo me namasa vidiyate. I worship Adhokshaja. I worship the Supreme Lord Adhokshaja always in my heart. And he is that Vishuddha Sattva. Sattvam Vishuddham, Vishuddha Sattva. Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam. Another name for Vishuddha Sattva is Vasudeva. Why is it? That's why we call it as Vasudeva Sattva. Shuddha Sattva, we can also call it as Vasudeva Sattva. Why is it called Vasudeva? Yadiyate tatra pumana pavrita. So in that Vasudeva, Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam Yadiyate tatra pumana pavrita. The Supreme Lord there, he is uncovered. So in that state of Vasudeva, the Supreme Lord Vasudeva becomes manifest. And this is another reason why Krishna's father is Vasudeva. Because from Vasudeva, Vasudeva has appeared. If you remember the birth of Krishna, Vasudeva, he meditated, and in his heart, when his heart is become fully transcendental, and then Krishna appeared in his heart. And from his heart, he entered into the heart of Devaki and then into the womb of Devaki. So when our consciousness is situated in Shuddha Sattva, in that state, Supreme Lord Krishna will manifest in our heart. And that is the pure devotional service. And unless, Prabhupada is saying, therefore, pure devotion to Krishna, this is actually Shuddha Sattva. So these are the three different modes in which the worship is there, different modes. So I'll stop here. There are 3 more minutes. If there are any final comments and questions, we can discuss.
So Prabhuji, it's kind of impossible to be like I can say that no one is without any nature. Someone is in one of the nature, right? So, but if someone is in mode of ignorance or passion, I don't know, like how we can just people. Not necessarily all the people who worship Krishna is like a Vishuddha Satya or something, right? So
yes,
even they are in mode of passion or ignorance, and still they worship Krishna or a supreme personality, so of Godhead. So how we can just like I cannot say justify, but how we can relate that this person is right or wrong, because this can be a fabrication also of a show off, or that's a sometimes we have learned in the previous chapter, gradually we go to the next, the mode of goodness is the highest level of nature. And so we cannot say still in being in a mode of ignorance, we should worship ghost in spirit, then come to Shiva and then move to, we have to, in any mode, nature of mode, you have to worship Krishna only, right?
Yes, good point. So this is what I was saying.
Yeah.
We can have other things in other modes, but then our Shraddha, Adav Shraddha, if you have a little bit of faith in Krishna, that is enough. You don't have to invest fully, right? You know, a businessman, he comes, he's starting his business, right? So he is not owning everything at the beginning. He has a little bit, you get you a few dollars, you buy something for $10 and you sell for $20, you get some profit, so you keep on moving. So in order to become a successful businessman, you have to start somewhere, right? So similarly, to become a pure devotee, you start somewhere. So you invest a little bit of faith, right? You invest a little bit of faith. And with that little bit of faith, in the association of devotees, you make progress, and you continue. What happens? Nashta prayeshu avadhreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtike. Right? Abhadra, all abhadra will go away by serving Srimad Bhagavatam. Shunvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridyantasohi abhadrani vidunoti suhrutsatam. As we start hearing Krishna Katha, the cleansing is happening in our heart. Tada rajastamo bhava kama lobhadayaschaye chetayete ranaviddam sitam sattve prasidati. So by the process of Krishna consciousness, tada rajastamo bhava kama lobhadayaschaye, all these rajoguna, tamoguna, this lust, anger, greed, and all these things, these are cleansed. And we come to the point of sattva. So then, if you are already in fully pure, then there's no point of Bhagavatam speaking this verse, right? So the point is we invest little bit. That's why it's called sadhana bhakti. By sadhana bhakti, we'll come to the point of Shuddha bhakti, right? So we have sadhana bhakti, and then we have bhava bhakti and prema bhakti. So in this sadhana bhakti also, we have Vaidhi bhakti and we have Raganuga bhakti. So what we are executing is Vaidhi bhakti, devotionals in a regulated devotional service. We need regulations because we have these other modes trying to dominate in our heart. Therefore, we need regulations. Like my Guru Maharaj every year, he asks for annual report on his Vyasa Puja day. And he has these questions. Did you follow 4 regulative principles strictly this year? Who is your authority in Krishna consciousness? Who is your GBC authority? What services you are rendering? And what time are you getting up and chanting in Brahma Muhurta? So these are regulations, and somebody has to do this for us. And that's the duty of spiritual master, is to help a disciple advance. So therefore we have these regulations. That way we have this Vaidhi bhakti, and these regulations are checks and balances to make sure are we being victimized by these modes of ignorance and passion? Are we doing everything we need to stay in the association of devotees so that the devotees can help us to stay on track, right? So the reason we have this system securing and this, for lack of a better word, you could say this policing ourselves, is because we are prone to these lower modes. So we go with little bit of investment that's there in Shuddha Sattva, but we are these other things, we are taking help from sadhu, shastra, guru, to guard ourselves not to be victimized by these things, because they are there within us. Those things are there inherent, like you're saying, these samskara, these impressions are there in our heart. And with the first opportunity, they'll come out, right? So therefore, we always stay in the association of devotees. And that's how we will be able to, we'll be protected by this association.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So one more question. I know the Supreme Personality of God is the ultimate God and we should worship Him. But isn't it, especially in India, I can say, the worshipping demigod is helping a lot of things in control, especially like if you take the example of forest, river, we treat as a mother, Ganga, or forest, or sun god, anything. So we, because of that kind of tendency, people avoid making the that place dirty or something, right? So like a lot of things get controlled in a good way by worshipping those demigods. Even so, in one way, worshipping demigod also helps keeping a lot of things in control by. So how good it is, like worshipping demigods, and apart from if you're not worshipping Krishna, but a lot of people have it, they go to Ganga every morning, they do puja or Ganga, that's all they do. Some people go to even they worship Govardhan mountain. That's also because even Krishna said why we should be worshipping Govardhan mountain, because it is more important than Indra, because he gives you food, he gives you grass for the cow and everything. So even Krishna has told to worship some of the demigods and nature more than, I don't know, he never said to worship himself in that when he was, but yes, during Gita, he said that Aham Brahmasmi, like he is the final authority of everything. But he also is to worship demigod and nature, right?
Okay, so there are multiple things that you are mentioning. So let's make sure we kind of dissect them. So one is worshipping other demigods. But the example that you have given is about Mother Ganga and Giri Govardhan. Actually, worshipping Mother Ganga, Giri Govardhan, even Vaishnavas do this. This is also part of Vaishnava practice, because Ganga is nothing but it's a water emanating from the lotus feet of the Lord, and Giri Govardhan is actually manifestation of the Lord. He aids in different pastimes of the Lord, and actually is also incarnation, expansion of the Lord, like that. So therefore, that's part of the Vaishnava practice. So now, when we talk about the other Devi Devatas, so Krishna, in the Bhagavad Gita itself, he says in chapter number 7, I believe verse 22 or something like that, ballpark. Yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktya shraddhaya chitum arhate tam tam achalam shraddham ahameva vidadhami. So yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktya shraddhaya chitum ichchati. So when these people, they go to different demigods and they want to worship these different demigods, and aham vidadami achala shraddha, I give them this faith, this steady faith in those demigods. Actually, Krishna is the one who is giving faith to people to worship demigods. Otherwise, they cannot even have faith. Without Paramatma sitting in their heart, helping them, they go, somebody invites them, let's go to do some Durga Puja. They go to a function, they recite, they ask, and they get fulfilled. But he says, Mayaiva vihitam hitam. Even those results that they are getting, Krishna is saying, I am giving. The faith to worship, I am giving. But he also said they are doing this avidhi purvakam. They are worshipping me, but avidhi purvakam, they are worshipping me without proper regulation. Improperly they are doing this. So this is avidhi. That means they are not properly understanding what Krishna wants them to do. But because they are so much absorbed in the lower modes and desires, they don't want to get out of it, Krishna is helping them to go somewhere. Now, is that useful? Yes, it is useful, because they are surrendering to somebody. This ahankar, that I am the supreme, now they are going and bowing down to somebody. So gradually they are progressing, and one day they'll realize, who is this demigod worshipping? Why is Lord Shiva meditating? Why is Lord Brahma meditating? If someone understands those properly, then they will make further progress. But that process is very, 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 very slow. That is why Vyasadeva in Srimad Bhagavatam says, Akamo sarva kamo va moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajate purusham param. So there it is described that whether we have, after it describes worship of different demigods, if you want to have these benefits, you can go to this demigod, but what's the point? Even if you have all these, just go to Krishna. So we can tell people, hey, why are you worshipping demigod? You want that. That's okay, come to Krishna. Come to Krishna, he'll give you. That's what Bhagavatam is saying. Even if you have those desires, come to Krishna. We have one boy, he wanted to marry one girl. And we're telling you, worship Krishna, it's okay, things will happen there. And then he has another friend, he told him, you take yogurt to Krishna temple every day, you give him yogurt, he'll give me your girl. He'll give you your girlfriend. And he did, and that girl, he made friends with him. I don't know where the relationship went. He moved away from the city where I was in. But, he did it. Yes, there's a purpose, they make progress, but even if that is there, they can come to Krishna. He will purify, he'll purify them. So I think it's getting late. It's 8:09. So thank you very much. Is that okay? Is that Ankit Prabhu asked this question?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
I answered it. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, all the devotees, for your association.
Thank you, Prabhuji. It was a wonderful class. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ganapati Govinda Prabhu. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Hari Bol Prabhuji.
Hari Bol. Tulasiyai namo namaha. But that was Tulasi, right?
Yes.
Yes, Hare Krishna. I said Tulasyai Namo Namaha. Tulasyai Namaha means
तुलसी महारानी
obeisances
की
unto
जय
Tulasi. Jai.
तुलसी महारानी की जय
Jai.
Hare Krishna.